Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. We are both editors over at Mavs Moneyball. You are joining us late, one of the later podcasts we've had to do this year. The Dallas Mavericks just defeated the Phoenix Suns on the road to give them their 20th win of the season. They won 98-89. Josh, how you doing?
Doing good. 90. Man, that score. I haven't seen one of those scores in a while, have we?
Well, the Suns, I wouldn't have put I wouldn't have put a lid on their basket. Like, that's my official take. The Suns the Suns were so awful. And I don't want to take anything away from what the Mavericks did, but there were just some classic instances of it was almost like Benny Hill kind of basketball where just comedy of errors, missed rims or missed attempts at the rim. It was fantastic. This was a weird game. And a weird game in so many ways. It's kind of hard to figure out where to start. I think I'll do a brief recap of what happened in the game. The Mavericks started out absolutely on fire. Kyrie Irving hit 4 3-pointers in a row. PJ Washington added one in there. The Mavericks hopped out to a 14-4 lead, let the Suns get back in the thing almost immediately, then proceeded over the course of the second quarter to really kind of pummel the Suns. It was a very physical basketball game. Interestingly enough, if you've watched either of the first two games in this series, the Suns really dared Nurkic, or essentially said, you know what, we're going to beat you with Nurkic. We're going to bully you, which is an interesting strategy. And frankly, it worked the first two games. They really took it to the Mavericks in areas where the Mavericks are happy giving teams shots, meaning kind of in the mid-range. Do you remember that one stretch? It was either the first game or the second game where they went to Nurkic 5 times in a row and he just kind of scored at will. Mm-hmm. The Mavericks played the numbers in those first two games and lost. One by a few, one by 1 point. Just it was a really fascinating set of games. And this one, the Mavericks came in and really just sort of beat the Suns down. The Suns couldn't hit a shot. Mavericks walked into the half with a pretty big lead. The third quarter was a riot because an actual honest-to-God fight broke out in the NBA in the year 2024 when Yusuf Nurkic and his ugly face attempted to get a little too frisky twice in a row with Mavericks players. It was like on back-to-back possessions where he was just sort of out of control. Najee Marshall stepped in front of him. Yusuf Nurkic pushed Marshall's face, and I'll just say, as a person who has both been on both ends of a fight, don't put hands on a person's face. That's one way to set someone off. Marshall punched Nurkic in the face, like an actual punch. I used it in the recap because it made me laugh so hard. And then PJ shoved Nurkic down, which ended up getting him ejected. But that shove probably prevented an actual fight, is my take. And then the Mavericks, as I'll try to close my soliloquy here, the Mavericks then just sort of attempted to hold on for dear life because they lost both Daniel Gafford and PJ, whereas the Suns lost Nurkic, who was actively hurting them. And so if you're watching this game, you're kind of thinking, oh shit, the Suns are going to make a run here, which they did, only for the Mavericks to respond. Klay Thompson played a great game. Lots of different Mavericks played fun games, and the Mavericks ended up holding off the Suns for this win. Is that a pretty solid appearance?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this was a fun game for Mavs fans because I said this, I think, on Twitter before we recorded. This was simultaneously probably the best win of the season in terms of feel good win. And then on the other side of the coin, this is probably the worst loss of the season for the Suns. So if you're a Mavs fan, you get the twofer of enjoying a really fun, gritty, feel good, rallying win. And then you can also enjoy the fact that the fan base on the other side is having an existential crisis about their team. That's just kind of the way it went. I don't know if we've never seen a team in the Luka era like this because it's a good team. Not to discount the previous Mavericks teams, not to say they weren't good, but I'm talking about team, an actual team. This is this is an honest to God championship contending roster. And, the Mavericks have had good teams with Luka in the past, but they've been mostly Luka elevating that to where they were. And this is Luka enhancing more or less, not even on the floor in this game. Like no Luka, no Lively. Kyrie shoots 6 of 21 and has 5 assists and 5 turnovers. And then Najee and PJ get ejected in the third quarter, and you win comfortably. Like they didn't squeak this out by the skin of their teeth. They didn't shoot 1,000,000,000% from 3 and kind of just got hot and make or miss their way to a win. Like they physically dominated the game and won by 9 points, and the Suns never got the game to a 1 possession game, despite no Luka, no Lively, and then PJ and Najee getting ejected in the third quarter, and Kyrie basically not being able to make shots after the first quarter. Suns never got they got close, but they never got it to a 1 possession game. And to me, that this game exemplifies everything we've been saying for about the last 6 to 8 months about how this Mavericks roster is just so different. And this game represents kind of the culmination of what this organization has done over the last 12 months or so.
Yep.
And just kind of puts an exclamation point at the end of the sentence. I think like this is, if you weren't a believer in the team when they went on the run last season, post trade deadline, if you weren't a believer in this roster during their playoff run, making the finals, if you weren't a believer when they ripped off 11 of 12 this season and kind of established themselves as one of the best teams in the West and one of the best teams in the league, I would hope after this game, you would be a believer. Like if you're not after this game, then you just don't want to be, because it's very obvious what this roster is, and it's a championship contending roster.
Well, and we left out some fun details, and beyond so the Mavericks are missing Luka Doncic, who is going to be reevaluated in a month. For anybody who can do math, I think it's safe to just go ahead and pencil in mid-February for Luka's earliest possible return date. Just me theorizing. So the Mavericks are up against that. Right before the game, Derek Lively gets ruled out with a hip contusion, which wasn't entirely surprising if you saw the collision he had with Mike Conley towards the tail end of that game. Lively plays a little reckless in a way that I admire, but it just means he's going to be banged up some games. So you're already down 2 starters. And then here's a fun stat for you. Kyrie Irving starts 4 of 4 from the field, 4 of 4 from 3. He finished a remarkable 6 of 21. So for those of you who are not quick at math, that means he went 2 of 17 to finish the game, including 1 of 11 from 2-point range. And the Mavericks won. Okay?
One-handedly. For the most part, yeah.
Now, Jason Kidd nearly killed the guy, I feel like, but to Kidd's defense,
he had to.
Like when PJ and Najee Marshall are gone, your only other ball handlers past Spencer Dinwiddie or Jaden Hardy, and he didn't want to play Hardy just yet. That's fine. I trust the coaching staff in that regard. But there's literally nobody else left. Brandon Williams is not going to get minutes in this game. Jazzy and Gortman is not going to get real minutes in this game. Quentin Grimes, you don't want him necessarily running point as the primary option. You just have to have ball handlers in there. So that was kind of an interesting element of this game, because it was really a knife fight. It was an ugly game. Now, can we be honest with ourselves and say the Mavericks got a little bit lucky? I think that's the case. Sometimes you just got to be lucky. I mean, some of the Suns' missed shots were bad. Like, yeah. Royce O'Neal, goodness, that guy couldn't buy a bucket.
There were some bad misses by the Suns for sure, but also the Suns shot 8 of 16 from the corners.
Yes, that's true.
If you make 8 corner threes in a game, you're usually in pretty good shape. That's a lot of corner threes. You don't want to give up 8 makes from the corners in an NBA game in 2024, and they still couldn't get over the hump because the Mavericks basically dominated the paint and the mid range.
So
3 of 12 from the Suns shot 3 of 12 in the mid range, and when a team has Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and shoots 3 of 12 in the mid range, yeah, that's a little
bit of luck. Like Durant was like,
he was good.
Durant was absurd. Yeah. Watching that guy play basketball in that first quarter. So the Mavericks are up on this run, hitting all these threes, and they're sending open doubles at Durant every time he catches the ball. And the Mavericks got put into scramble rotations early, and their early efforts, their early closeout efforts, and just the way they were scrambling sucked.
Yep.
But they got Coco Nuts, fantastic handle, by the way. In the chat points out that it was a great defensive effort, and I agree with that because they got significantly better in the second and third quarters where the defense just locked the Suns down. So you're right. I was just there's just certain shots like I'm thinking of certain rim attempts that just didn't go down.
Yeah, the paint shot charts for this game are hilarious
for both teams, to be honest, because Kyrie was horrible.
Yeah, the Mavericks had 30 points in the paint and the Suns had 32. Yeah, like that's combined 62 points in the paint. That has to be near like the lowest combined paint scoring total this season. Like that's pretty wild.
So okay, I overstated.
No,
it wasn't just luck, but it was like there's a lot going on in this game. So I'm watching on playback, like oh my god, like this was one of the more entertainingly weird games that we've had. Like you and I talked before the game, you kind of post this in the Mavs Slack where it's like in the first quarter, it's thinking, okay, this is ugly basketball. And okay, are the Mavericks going to be able to hold off despite the hot shooting start? How many times over our past 5 years have we seen a hot shooting start and then the Mavericks just turn into mush and not be able to do anything? That's where like this team is different element really starts to play in.
Yeah, that they have multiple avenues to win is just we just haven't seen that in a very very long time. That they didn't need to rely on making three. Like they won this game comfortably and they got outshot at the 3-point line. Like the Suns made 13 threes, 37%. The Mavericks made 12 threes, 35%. Like again, like if you told me before the game that the Mavericks won this game, I'd be like, oh, well, did they just get unsustainably hot from three and steal a game? And it's like, no, they did the dirty work. Like they did all the other stuff that's required of winning. They did get beat on the rebounding battle pretty bad. So they didn't do a great job there, keeping the Suns off the offensive glass. But otherwise, I mean, they did just about everything else. And the way that they guarded the paint, I thought was pretty inspiring. The way that they competed in the mid-range against Durant and Beal, I thought was also inspiring. The way that like Durant, he finished with 30. He had a great game. He finished with 35 points on 19 shots. He was 11 of 19 from the floor. But this is going to sound really dumb, but it kind of felt like a muted 35 point. Like when Najee and PJ went out halfway through the third quarter, like I kind of expected Durant to just have his way. And I guess he kind of did. Kind of did. But like, I don't know. Like I expected him to finish. Like maybe my expectations were just kind of out of whack. But like the Mavericks had no one to guard him. Like it was basically Maxi was the only player that they had to guard him. And the fact that like he scored 35, so okay, what are you going to do? But the fact that they didn't really have to that no one else beat them. So like you consider the attention that they were giving Durant at times in the second half, the fact that the Mavericks were able to scramble and recover, like without PJ and Najee, I thought that was pretty impressive. Like the Suns only had 3 players in double digits. And after Durant, it was Beal with 11 and he was terrible. And it was Royce O'Neal off the bench with 14. And after that, like it was nothing. Like no one else on this team was scoring. For the Suns, for their 4th highest scorer to be Josh Okogie, who is like an active offensive deterrent at times.
Yes.
Like the Mavericks did their job. The Mavericks did their job. They did it very well. With a roster that they should not have been able to keep the Suns down after Najee and PJ went out. I almost want to like rewatch it and see what they did because it's kind of crazy.
Well, I want to talk about what I think you would see upon a rewatch when we come back from this short break. Guys, those of you who have been listening to the show for quite some time know that over the last month or so, we've had a new show sponsor, a company by the name of Body Spec. We're really excited to partner with them because they represent something that, or the product that they offer is something that I actually believe in. What they provide is called a DEXA scan. It's a full body composition scan, something that helps you understand sort of where you are with your body. Whether you're, a person with a desk job, whether you've got kind of an active job on your feet, whether you're an athlete or a parent or just, somebody trying to figure out what to do next as they try to get into shape. A DEXA scan is a great way to figure out where you are in your fitness journey. I've, in the show banner here on the YouTube, you can see we have a promo code, but in order to use that promo code, you need to go to the Body Spec link, which is in the show notes, both for the YouTube and for the podcast. And that promo code is PODMAVS in all caps 45. That will get you $15 off a single scan. We just passed Christmas and, New Year's is right around the corner here. This is a great idea to kind of kick off your New Year's resolution, figure out where you are with a baseline. Body Spec's competitors charge as much as $150 for a scan like this, so you'll be getting real usable information at a great price. Again, visit that bodyspec.com link in the show notes and use PODMAVS45 at checkout. Josh and I have both had this done. We're not going to really talk about it as much tonight, but I'll say that the level of detailed information you get, along with some potential action items that you can use if certain markers are not great, is really helpful. It's so easy to be overwhelmed when considering getting into shape or just sort of changing your fitness routine. And I've just found the information to be pretty invaluable for the price that I paid. So right now, Josh and I are going to insert some ads. If you'll listen to those as well, it helps Josh and I out. That's one of the main ways we make money off this podcast. So we will be right back. Okay, so I said before our commercial break there that I wanted to talk about what I think you would see upon the rewatch. And what I think you would see upon the rewatch is Klay Thompson providing so much value that I don't really know where to start with Klay. His stat line is a meager 11 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. But again, this is a however old shooting guard coming to a new team, playing a different role, kind of getting batted around to a certain extent with his shot attempts. He didn't really see the ball very much in this game at certain elements. And yet he was one of the most impactful Mavs players. He finished with a team high plus 17. He came up with some really incredible, both defensive and offensive plays that helped the Mavericks just keep the Suns absolutely buried. Josh, what did you think of his game?
I thought he was awesome. I thought he was huge in the fourth quarter where he basically generated, I think he made 3 shots in the fourth quarter and they all kind of felt like they were just him taking kind of control of the offense, which is something you don't see from Klay on this Mavericks roster. And they desperately needed, because he was on the bench for most of the end of the third quarter when the Mavericks were they could not get anything going and Kyrie was missing so many shots. And you're just watching, you're like, where are they going to get off? Like, how are they going to score? Like, if Kyrie's not making shots, what are they going to do? Klay comes in to start the fourth and kind of bangs in 3 jumpers, basically kind of on his own. I think one of them was assisted off the screen, but he had a pull-up midi, and then he kind of had a fading, almost 3-pointer, toe on the line, 2-pointer that was off the dribble. That was kind of like, oh, okay. Like, he took the ball and did stuff with it instead of just kind of trying to get set up by teammates, which was pretty impressive and kind of met the moment. Like, I wonder if he was on the bench watching how that third quarter ended and was like, okay, when I get back in, I got to do something about this because we can't score. We're shorthanded. Kyrie doesn't have it. He's played a bunch of minutes. All of his shots were coming up short in the second half. No PJ, no Najee. Like, it's on me. Like, that. This is what I'm here to do. I'm the theoretical third best player on the team. I don't think he's the third highest paid player on the team, but like hierarchy, like in that locker room, he's at least the third most important player behind Kyrie and Luka. And he acted like it. And I thought what was also good, his passing was great. He 5 assists, 1 turnover. Made a couple of nice plays in the pick and roll. Again, the reads he can make when he comes off those pin downs, curling around the elbow, going toward the basket. He's really good at that. And defensively, like he had a block and a steal. Like he was sound otherwise. He got himself on KD and on Bradley Beal multiple times, and Bradley Beal was terrible, no matter who was guarding him, but Klay did a great job as well. Yeah, he earned every one of that plus 17. He was really good.
So Klay has a steal and a block, and he did two things that I don't remember what quarters they were in, but I remember the sequence of play where it was a fast break, and he did the old Dirk Nowitzki swipe down and stayed in bounds after taking the ball both times, I'm pretty sure. And it's, I was talking with somebody. I apologize for stealing this take, because this was just one of those. It's one of those things you have in conversation where it's like, I think the defensive concerns for Klay, I don't want to say they've been overblown, but I do think one of the things that really benefits Klay is that the Mavericks are significantly bigger position to position than the Warriors were. Klay no longer is guarding. Like, do you remember Luka? Klay was guarded by, or Luka was guarded by Klay last year. The Mavericks don't ask him to do that shit. So he's just out there being a 6'7" body that knows how to play basketball, guards his man. He's going to get cooked. That's fine every now and again. Every player does. But he's not asked to go out there and be the defensive stopper. And I think that just opens up a lot to his game. And I also read something where it's like, well, he's no longer being asked to run around like a chicken with his head cut off in a complicated, screen and move system. So he's not putting the miles on his body. I wonder if he has a little more juice to play defense. Granted, I don't know if either of those things are true, but I found them as good takes. And I just wanted we've not talked about Klay very much this year. And Klay has been a significant part of the sort of resurgence the last 8 to 10 games. He's played fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. His size makes such a big difference too. Like, he had 6 rebounds. He was the second leading rebounder on the team. He had the most rebounds of anyone in the starting lineup. And that mattered. Like, he grabbed a couple of contested rebounds, I think in the fourth quarter, where like you kind of forget that he is a 6'7" shooting guard. And I think that size, it was part of what made the Warriors so good, was they were able to play small without actually being small. Like those Warriors championship teams, like, yeah, it's easy to play Draymond Green at center when your shooting guard is 6'7". Like, and you just kind of forget how big he is sometimes. And the Suns, outside of Durant and Nurkic, are not a big team at all. And Bradley Beal's not a big guy. Tyus Jones, Royce O'Neal, like Josh Okogie, like they don't play a super tall lineup outside of Durant and outside of Nurkic. So when Nurkic is out of the game, Klay was able to use his size a couple of times, to grab rebounds, or using his size to make passes over the top of the defense when he's running downhill off a screen. Like, that stuff matters. And sometimes I think his size, I feel like, is a little underrated aspect of his game, but like he's a big guard. Like, he's a pretty big dude for a shooting guard.
So do we do it now? Have we waited enough time
for Maxi time?
Give it enough time. Maxi Kleber always comes back to us. Always comes back to us. This Maxi Kleber scored 33 points before tonight this season. 33 points. He's played 18 games, guys. Maxi is on the offensive end has been as close to a non-contributing zero as a player can be. And the Mavericks have simply been like, fuck this. You're going to score baskets. We're going to give you the ball. And if you don't shoot the ball, teams are no longer guarding Maxi. He's not considered a scoring threat. But here's the thing about Maxi Kleber. Here's what, years ago, like 2 years ago, Jeff Skinwade in a pregame thing did something which like upset Mav's social media, Twitter, where he was just like, basically saying like, all you guys who didn't believe in Maxi, look, he's still here. And there's an element of truth to that, because it's like the simple fact about Maxi is this. One, he's played a lot of minutes. His body is not what it used to be. and I think that robs him of his confidence. But the thing about him is that he possesses skill. And he, at one point, like he went through a whole season where he's like a 90% three-point shooter. He hit 8 threes in a game against Utah. This is a guy who is capable of playing functional basketball. And the Mavericks had, he took advantage of advantageous positions tonight. But he hit a long 2. He had a dunk on a slip because the other team was like, well, this guy's not going to dunk the ball. He had a 3. He had a transition almost dunk. He grabbed 7 boards. He played pretty dang good defense when the Mavericks really did what they, as much as they could do. The Suns are obviously a smaller team. We're not going to see this kind of Maxi very often. That's okay. He had 5 double-digit scoring games and 43 contests last year. I don't need him to score double-digit points. I need him to be willing to be part of the offense. Devin Harris actually addressed this during the broadcast. He was like, if this guy is, he said something along the lines of, if this guy is a willing contributor, then the Mavericks are no longer playing 4 and 5 on offense. Like, I was shocked that he said that. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
like I'm glad he said it because it's accurate. Like, the guy is not a very functional offensive player, but I think that's more because of confidence than ability. I'm delighted to see that it worked out.
No, for sure. And the stat about he had 15 tonight, he had 33 entering this game is very funny. He made 5 shots tonight. He had 12 made shots entering this game.
I mean,
if you want to take, go ahead.
I think if we back out, because he was forced into shots the previous 2 games. So it's like he scored 8 points in the previous 2 games. So realistically, before
No, yeah, I was actually just looking at that. So the last 3 games, he scored 23 points. Before that, entering
23 of his 43 have been scored the last 3 games.
Yeah. Yes.
No, 23 of his 48. Sorry, I can't do math.
He had 25 points on the season entering the Portland game on Monday, and since that Portland game, he scored 23 points.
Like, that's hilarious. Yeah. And he's played a lot of minutes.
Yeah, like he's not,
he's averaging 15 and a half when he plays.
Right. And he's regular part of the rotation. So it's crazy. I would say the last 2 games, even though the Mavericks lost Christmas Day, I would still say the last 2 games were probably his 2 best defensive games of the season. He was really good on defense in that Wolves game. He was a big part of why the Mavericks were able to make that comeback. He was kind of a monster defensively. And the big thing with Maxi is, like, they need him because they don't have a backup 4. Like, he's the backup 4. Like, if it's not him, it's Omax Prosper, who, I know certain portion of the fan base is really eager to give Maxi's role to him. And, I'm not really there yet. I probably haven't seen enough. But when he plays like this, you realize how important he is. And the Mavericks, a lot of what they do is being able to beat people up in the paint. Well, it's hard to do that if you don't have a back, like if PJ's on the bench and you don't have another wing and you're having to play 4 perimeter players and a center, that just takes away a little bit of your bite defensively in terms of wanting to own and control the paint. So when Maxi is going right, it just makes a difference because it feels like, with Lively and Gafford and then PJ and Maxi, like if all 4 of those guys are playing well, you could play 48 minutes without having to kind of go weird small. Like, you could play your big paint protecting lineups with, you're either playing Lively, you either have Lively or Gafford on the floor at all times, or you have PJ and Maxi, or PJ or Maxi on the floor at all times. It's a huge advantage, but Maxi has to play well. And he really, defensively, he's been pretty good for most of the season. Like you said, offensively, he's been as much of a non-contributor for a rotation player as you can be. And maybe something's turning around a little bit, but yeah, like you said, he doesn't need to score 15 points. Like, even, that Wolves game where he had 5 points, like he took 3 shots. Like,
yes,
it sounds silly and it's not like we're trying to be demeaning, but like, if he just participates on offense, that is like half the battle. The problem is not necessarily he's scoring 0 points. It's he's scoring 0 points and not shooting. You know what I mean? Or he shoots 1 time. Like, it'd be different if he was like 0 for 5 from the floor with 1 point, but when you're 0 for 1 in 17 minutes and scored 0 points, that's like, okay, that's really hard to overcome. So we'll see if he's turning a corner.
Somebody just told me that I just like I post the photo of Najee Marshall punching Nurkic in the face. Nurkic's head is snapped back because Najee punches him. Somebody said the Najee missed. I'm just like, what? This is why the internet, we shouldn't have access to the internet. Okay, so quick shout out to Omax, 6 minutes, 2 points. His layup, I could watch it 1,000 times because it's
the transition layup.
Because it's like, oh, he turned on the Jets, is what Mark Followell said, and it's like, buddy, he lost the ball and recovered it in time to make the layup.
He looked like me. So the best way I can describe what that Omax fast break layup looked like is I, for most of my life, drove a pickup truck. It was my first car in high school, was a 2000 Chevy Silverado. I drove that until it fell. I drove that till it got rear-ended and got totaled like 12 years later. I still would probably be driving that car right now if it didn't get rear-ended. Like, that's just kind of how I am with cars. And then after that, I got a Colorado. So I've been driving a truck. I sold it, and then we got my wife she didn't really have a car. We got her a Volkswagen Tiguan SUV. So for my whole life, I'm driving Chevy pickup trucks. And like, if you've driven a pickup truck, you know what it feels like when you put your foot down on the accelerator. It takes a little bit to get up and go. The first time I got in that Volkswagen and I touched the accelerator, it's like, whoop. Like, I jerked my wife back in the passenger seat, and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, I've never driven a car that's like this. And that's kind of what Omax looked like. Like, he looked like he put the foot down on the accelerator for the first time. I didn't realize how much giddy up he had. And he kind of lurched forward, but he was able to control it and score, which was good, which was fun.
Oh man. I just got Dwight Powell had a hilarious game. Just lots of
great Dwight Powell game.
Great minutes for Evil Spock. And just Google Evil Spock if you want to know why I make that reference. None of us are old enough for that shit. My only thought for this game, if I'm to make like a criticism, is I need Spencer to stop. He has reverted into bad 2022, 23, like pre-trade Spencer. In a lot of his, like, he is pounding the shit out of the ball on possessions.
Yeah. There were a lot of possessions in the third quarter where it was literally Spencer dribbling the ball and 4 people watching him. And I don't
what the fuck are we doing? Part of why we turned our attitudes around on Spencer is because he's moving the ball and the dribble, step back 3. Like, Klay had 1 shot in the first quarter because of Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, that motherfucker shot so many horrible shots. Now he finished 5 of 12. Why did he finish 5 of 12? Because he actually started attacking the basket. So he ended up being 4 of 7 from 2-point range. We can live with that. It's the horrid heaves, as Drew is mentioning in the thing, where it's just like, calm down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like, that probably doesn't, that only, like, it's one of those things you just have to live with no, like, because again, if everyone's healthy, he plays 14 minutes tonight, and you just don't see it a lot.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where it's like, you want to get pissed off at it, and you should, you
can passing though.
I know.
And I just feel like these last 3 games, he's been like, you know what? Not going to do that anymore. Just annoying. That's all.
Yeah. My annoying thing was the, I guess if I had to equate one annoying sequence for me, that was the Quentin Grimes double turnover possession where he had the ball, bringing it up the floor late in the fourth quarter, turned it over, and then the Suns saved the ball, passed it right back to him, and he turned it over. He picked up his dribble and turned it over again. That was a little rough. He had a weird game. His 2 threes were huge, but he had 2 turnovers that were pretty bad. He missed some layups. That turnover that I described, he immediately got sent to the bench. Like, Jason Kidd was like, all right, enough of this. I'd put Spencer back into the game, because say what you will, but Spencer only had 1 turnover tonight.
Yeah, that's true.
So, didn't turn the ball over. Because the Suns tried to get back into the game late with full court press, try to turn them over. Kyrie's tired. no Luka, no ball handlers after Kyrie really. So they had to get Grimes out and put Dinwiddie in to finish the game off. But yeah, Grimes had a weird game. Not his best effort, but still played 29 minutes and made 2 important threes. So yeah, take what you get.
I got to admit, for the first night of a back-to-back, I couldn't have asked for more from a game like that. So real fun.
No, tomorrow will be tough because Najee will be suspended. We don't know how many games, but when you throw a punch, that's an automatic suspension. PJ shouldn't be suspended.
I don't think so. I don't think he will.
He can't. That would be ridiculous.
I mean, he might have saved, because I sent a message to Matt Moore, who keeps HP Basketball, who kind of keeps track of stuff like this, just because it's good for betting information. And he told me that the NBA has actually started to be lighter on fights than they used to be. And he said his guess would be 3 games for each, even though it should be more games for Nurkic, because Nurkic is a repeat offender. Which, I mean, who cares about Nurkic? But Najee Marshall, shout out to Najee for finding new and different ways to miss games this season. Injury, whatever, super flu he had, now fight. But anyway, loved it. So the Mavericks will be back tomorrow night. They're flying to Portland. They play kind of a bit of I don't want to say a reeling Portland team, because Scoot Henderson just won a game for them with a very Dirk Nowitzki-like spinning fadeaway, which is a shot he'll make 1 in 10,000 times in the game. But they're probably riding high. Mavs are riding high. That the Phoenix games are fun because Phoenix is spicy, so that could be a fun game, even though it starts at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I wonder if Kyrie's going to play.
Rolex says that Kyrie is not going to play.
I know. I've been trying to look and see that. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, he probably. I was going to say he shouldn't. He shouldn't play.
Yeah, no, he's played 77 minutes in the last 2 games.
Yeah, like he looks like he could use a week off, like, to be honest. But look at this quote Kyrie gave post game, because someone apparently asked him, "Are you playing on the same night back-to-back?" And he says, "For sure, bro. Come on, man. We can't drop any games. This is an important part of the season.
Yeah.
This is where teams either start dropping off or improving." That's a great answer from him. But of course, that decision doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He probably wants that, but if they're going to talk, but it's just at a certain point it becomes, if Najee Marshall's missing a game, Kyrie's missing a game, Luka's missing a game.
Yeah.
Like, you might, honestly, I would rather them play a team that they think they can beat and then seed it, not give up, but just
he's tired. He looks tired.
Yeah. Like it's, you can't ask more from these Mavs players is where I'm living at. So
no.
This is fun. Well, thanks for staying up late and hanging out with us. I would do a secondary show, but we're trying to sleep train our baby, and it is going poorly. So
let's just get out of here.
All right, guys. Kirk Anderson and Josh Bowe. This has been Pod Mavericks After Dark. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will be back tomorrow night, and thank you to Marcel Martin who gave us a super chat. We really appreciate that, Martin. Everybody have a great start to your weekend. We'll talk soon. Go Mavs.